Hey everyone, this is a review of Ryobi's P317 1+ 18V cordless 3/8 inch crown stapler. It shoots T50 style staples and uses their 1+ 18V batteries. Ryobi sent this over for me to test out, so we're going to take a closer look at this thing and then test it in a huge variety of different materials and see how it can handle each of them. The stapler takes anywhere from 1/4 inch to 9/16 inch long staples, the T50 kind like this. And they load right in the all-metal magazine up front like this. You just open it and drop them right in, slide it closed, and you're done. It does have a safety switch right here, so you have to depress this against your workpiece before pulling the trigger and firing it. It is not sequential fire, so you'll have to release the trigger each time you fire. You can't bump fire with this. On the back here is your depth gauge adjustment. So you've got a scale right here. You can set it from min to maximum, so it's a little bit proud if you're stapling wire or something, or if you want it flush or sub-flush, you can turn it to max. Now, one thing to note, with this little indicator right here that's supposed to move back and forth, mine's kind of broken. The depth adjustment still works fine. When I turn it one way or the other, it's 4 full revolutions, which is actually really easy to turn. But you can see this slides back and forth kind of freely on its own. It shouldn't do that. If I do adjustment, you can see it's moving, but it's still loose. But if I hold it back up like this, it gives me the actual true position it's in. And this is probably my fault that it broke because I was just turning it and it felt a little bit of resistance, and I was like, oh, maybe I'm at the end, but it didn't look like it was exactly at the end. And I turned it a little bit more and I heard a snap. And then now this is loose sometimes. Sometimes it kicks back in and grabs it. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but partially my fault I broke it. I feel like it should have been a little bit more robust though. On the front here is actually a pretty interesting feature. You've got a little clip right here and it's all metal. And what's nice is these little catches are also metal down here, so they're not going to wear out. But this is for applying wiring or screens, depending where you've got it at. If you put it back here like this, it's not doing anything. If you move it forward, you've got it set up for doing screens. It'll grab onto that and hold it in place while you staple. And then on the other side here, if you turn it around, you've got a setup for doing wiring. You put your wire right here and turn your depth adjustment all the way to minimum, and you can staple low voltage wiring with this. I'd recommend using a small slim pack style battery like this on it. The bigger fat pack style batteries, a 3 amp hour and bigger, they just make it a little bit too heavy, and it's meant to be a lightweight tool. It does have a belt clip if you want to work a little bit and then set this down. You can clip it onto your pants or your belt. It hangs pretty well around the center of gravity. It's a little bit off of it, a little bit front heavy, but it's not too bad. If you've got at least a slim pack battery in this, it will stand upright when you set it down. It will not stand flat on its base. Well, I mean, it kind of does, but it's a little bit easy to knock over that way. You can also set it upside down like that. If you want to take this belt clip off, you squeeze and rotate up, and it comes off. You can also put it on the other side if you are left-handed. So first up, I'm going to use some 1/2 inch staples, and I'm going to staple this low voltage wire to some pine. And this is just using the wire guide, the minimum setting for depth, and the 1/2 inch staple like I said earlier. It's actually pretty easy. You can see the wire's snugly held, but it's not damaged in any way. That's actually working really well for this. For a max power test, I've got 9/16 inch staples in this. I've got oak, walnut, and pine. See how it sets in each of them. All right, for the red oak, it's got all of these staple crowns right up against the wood surface. They're not, below the surface, so you can still feel them when you run your finger over these. But I think it's doing a pretty good job for shooting those 9/16. That's the Mac Link staple into hardwood. It's pretty much the same story as with the red oak, but you see you've got one mangled staple on this one out of 5. And I wasn't really paying particular attention to how I set it down, but it did mess up the leg of that one. But the rest of these crowns are right up against the wood. Here we go. Regular pine, that should have no problem with these. That's actually flush with the surface. When you run your finger over it, you don't catch anything on it Let's do some more. Oh yeah. Some of these are sub-flush. This one's completely underneath the surface. Pretty much all of them are. This one's a little bit, when you run your finger over, you can feel it. But for the most part, these are underneath the work surface completely. Here I've got 1/4" hardwood plywood into pine, and here I've got my 9/16" staples again. That one's sub-flush. That one's got a tiny little bit sticking up, and this one's just, it's, you know, the crown is flat on the workpiece, but it's not sub-flush. Some 1/8" hardboard into pine. So here we go. No problems. It's not sub-flush, but the crowns of the staples are up against the hardboard with every single one of these. This one's a little bit more proud, but it's still in there. All right, just for kicks, I've got some foamed PVC board. I expect it to go right through this. It did mark up the surface quite a bit. If you look at it a little bit closer, you can see that's one thing, this gun does mark up a finished surface, both with the contact points and then just kind of pressing it on the surface around it. It's not exactly gentle. All right, next up is some metal corner bead on drywall. I'm still going to use 9/16" staples, and I've got just a 2x4 underneath like a stud would be. There we go. I got good placement. It's all the way in. I think as long as you get your stapler centered and pay attention to where this arrow is, which is where your staple comes out, you're going to be good to go with these. It's actually pretty easy to get everything lined up. Let's just, for the heck of it, see if it can actually do on the metal. Wow, it shot into the metal. I'm super impressed by this because the M12 stapler can't do that. Maybe I got lucky. Let's try a few more. No way. Okay, so this one, it really screwed up. All right, so not 100%, but I never got one to go through the metal with the M12 stapler. Let's try it again real fast. That's what the M12 stapler did to this thing. Look at that. So, at least if you're stapling a drywall corner bead, the Ryobi is phenomenally better at metal corner bead. You don't have to hit the hole and straddle it every time. It'll go straight in. So I'm going to do an endurance test. I've shot a few staples out of that stick. I'm going to do a couple more and make sure this thing doesn't overheat with heavy use. And you'll be able to get an idea, even though this thing doesn't have bump fire, how fast you can fire it if you really want to go fast. All right, so that was most of 2 sticks of staples. You can see it doesn't have any problems keeping up with you. I shot staples on top of staples here. It didn't have any problems. I see one with a mangled leg here, and one that was, I think that was from the screen actually. One that's sticking out a little bit proud here, and then another one with a mangled leg. So out of probably 100, 150 staples, I had about 3 that didn't set right. Most of these are sub-flush, a few are just flush with the surface, especially around where this knot was right here, where the wood's going to be a little bit harder. So I think this thing's got great power, it's got plenty of speed, and it can keep up with you pretty much with whatever you're doing. The stapler's priced pretty well at $80 bare tool. That's $20 under the closest competition in this type of cordless stapler class. and I think it's a great deal for that price. So I think this is a great little stapler. If you've got a project coming up that could use one of these and you're in the Ryobi platform, I definitely recommend it. The only issue I had with mine was the depth indicator gauge breaking, and that was partially my fault, but it should be covered under warranty if you've purchased yours, and it should be covered under a return policy as well if it broke right away. So let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below, and once again, don't forget to subscribe.